What's up, y'all? Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. So, today I want to talk about the eighth house. No, but for real, we're going to talk about the eighth house in astrology, baby. Is you ready? Is you ready? So, what is the eighth house? Okay. First of all, what is a house? Because I have to continue to remind you guys this for my people who don't know. A house in astrology represents an area of life, okay? So then, therefore, we have the eighth house. So, what is the eighth house, you ask? The eighth house is the house that comes after the angular house, known as the descendant. The descendant is the seventh house, which is our house of relationships. So, therefore, the eighth house coming after that is the aftermath of those said relationships. So, the eighth house is super deep, okay? I could go on and on for days. Why am I talking about this right now? Because I am an eighth house being. I have heavy Plutonic influences, heavy eighth house influences. I say eighth house because, Pluto was birthed from the eighth house. So I like to say I'm an eighth house being because, all that Plutonic energy going on in my chart. I have my sun in the eighth house. My Venus is on the cusp of the eighth house. It's in the seventh, on the cusp of the eighth house. I have Pluto in my first house. It's just a lot of stuff going on. I have Moon square Pluto. Is that right? Yes. I have Moon square Pluto. Like, I just have a bunch of Plutonic energy in my chart. I'm definitely an eighth house being. So, the eighth house. What does the eighth house represent? The eighth house is the aftermath, they like to call it. This is where you would find divorces. This is where you would find, the basic portion of this house is sex, occult, mysticism, things that we do behind closed doors. It's represented by darkness a lot of times. But the eighth house is not as scary as everybody makes it seem like, oh my gosh. It's just the dark before the light, I like to say, because after that house is the ninth house. That's the house of Sagittarius. As we know, Sagittarius is wisdom, things of that nature. I feel like Sagittarius is the house coming back into the light. So, you know how you have to go through those little dark periods before you are enlightened, before you are brought into awareness. You have to be within the darkness so that you can create that life yourself. That's the lesson that you can learn from the eighth house, in my opinion. So, as I said, it represents, sex, occult, mysticism. Astrology falls into the eighth house. The planet Pluto comes from the eighth house. It was birthed from the eighth house. And so therefore, things such as psychology falls into the eighth house. Your desires, you can figure out what a person desires by looking at their eighth house or, eighth house aspects, things of that nature. So what happens when you have a planet within the eighth house? This planet is definitely going to, it's more of a, how do planets interact with with this house? How do they feel within this house? And so I have the sun in the eighth house, right? The sun represents I am. Oh my goodness. The sun represents I am, right? And within the eighth house, lots of times these are things that we hide on purpose. So how the 12th house is things that we unconsciously hide or subconsciously hide, The eighth house are things that we are aware that we're hiding, right? And lots of times with a planet in there, whatever characteristics of that planet, we tend to hide that from people. And it's usually due to some sort of power and control issue, right? That's the theme of like what eighth house people deal with, like, is power and control issues. And it's not like the 12th house where people are just impeding on your, they're just downright impeding on your privacy and your, like they'll just impede on your life basically. But the eighth house is more so people kind of see the like something is being hidden, and so they try to control a situation around you to try and see what that is. It's like a mystery. Like it's almost like people are enticed by trying to contain that type of energy. They are enticed by trying to have some sort of hold on that energy. And so myself and a lot of other eighth house people that I know deal with power and control struggles. Like it's just, a theme that we encounter through our entire life. So lots of times, but it's not just, oh, we're the victim. No, a lot of times, when we're uninvolved and we're going through our, everybody has their ups and downs. We can be that way too. We could be be the power. What am I trying to say? We could be the overpowering person. Eighth house energy is very intense. So when you have like a personal planet in that house, people pick up on this intensity from you almost immediately. So like I said, I have Pluto in my first house, and then my sun is in the eighth house. So a theme of my life when I was in school and stuff like that, like I'm real silly, but like you wouldn't know just looking at me. I feel like if I'm just sitting and I'm not really doing anything, I definitely have that resting bitch face thing going on. So a lot of times what I heard was, oh, I didn't like you at first. And I'd be like, why? Like, but I also have Jupiter in my first house. So that adds to my character, even though I have dealt with like, that deep, dark, intense energy of the eighth house, I also have Jupiter in my first house in Sagittarius. So I still am able to tap into that lively, like, character and wisdom and knowledge aspect of Sagittarius. They see the upside of life. So I'm still able to tap into those energies, but I very much deal with like that whole eighth house thing. And I think a lot of eighth house people know that. Like people sit and they kind of look at you like, I don't know about that one. You get these looks like. So a lot of people are just like, thrown off by your energy. And we can create auras like, because there's so much going on under the surface. It's almost like when I think of the eighth house, I just think of like water, bubbling below the surface. Like there's just a bunch of energy going on under that facade of just stillness. Like a lot of times we have a silence about ourselves in person, but on the inside it's very live. There's a lot going on. It's intense feelings and emotions and thoughts and so that can be hard for other people to deal with, but when you learn that aspect of yourself, I feel like that's a part of everybody's shadow work. You should definitely check your eighth house. When you learn that aspect of yourself, you learn to embrace the darkness with the light. So I feel like that's what I'm here for with other people. On YouTube, my videos, I haven't really gotten into depth all that much yet. But when I talk to people, we have like really deep conversations, and I look at their chart and I can just, like, I feel the energy already of when somebody's kind of going through something. And then when they explaining things to me, I'm like, well, why don't we check your chart? And I look and immediately I'm like, oh, this and this and that. And then they start to feel so like they're pouring their souls out, and it's healing for somebody to come and see that in you. So I feel like that's what I'm here for, like to bring the darkness, to bring light to the darkness. A lot of times bring that darkness out of people and let them know that it's okay, Okay, so yes, I feel like that's just kind of part of my purpose, is to make people aware of things that are hidden with them, things that are karmic to their life, because the eighth house is very karmic as well. It can tell you about a past life that the things that you've dealt with in your past life that have kind of signed your contract for your life today. Like with me having sun in the eighth house, I feel like who I was in a past life, I fell into my desires a lot. I also have South Node in Taurus, which can tell you about your past life as well. And my North Node is in Scorpio. So I'm just dealing with all this scorpionic energy. So I must be here to learn, to contain my desires. And I truly feel like that's the truth, because I've always been a person that from birth I felt like I had to be modest. I had to do everything in moderation. Like it just didn't feel right for me to overindulge into things. And when I did, things always went left. Always went left. Like I can never, I'm not a person who can step outside of my element, and you know what I'm saying? Like I just don't feel like I'm put here for that. Like I'm not here to overindulge. I have to do things in moderation. I'm a tiny little mercurial built person. Like if you know anything about Mercury, a lot of times I heard that mercurial people are tiny, and I'm tiny. I'm little. If I try to overeat, if I try to over drink, if I'm whatever I'm doing excessively, it is going to come back and burn me in the end. Like, yes, I have to do everything in moderation. But anyways, getting back to the video. So yes, sun being in the eighth house. And I know a lot of other sun in the eighth house people can kind of agree to this. We like for people to take care of us. That's just the truth. We do. We feel like we deserve it. We feel like we deserve other people to come and take care of us and to give us gifts. Don't have Venus in the eighth house. Oh my gosh, Venus in the eighth house people, you guys attract gifts from other people. Like, you guys, it's just like almost innate. Like people see y'all and they see something in y'all and they just want to give y'all stuff. Like it just be crazy. Sometimes this can be placements for gold diggers too. Like it doesn't mean that just because you have Venus there that you're a gold digger, but you know, say you have other very money hungry placements. You know, any sign can honestly be that way, but something like Taurus, you know, like you're a person with heavy Taurus energy or Capricorn energy, like you could be very, you could be a gold digger, you know what I'm saying? Because this is the house of other people's money as well. So when you have planets in this house, it's always going to be something dealing with finances, sex, and power. These are always going to be themes that you encounter in your life, is finances, sex, and power. And more specifically, other people's money, taxes, things like that. Things that we don't want to deal with fall into the eighth house. So, sun in the eighth house. Lots of times when I was growing up, I didn't want to deal with myself. I didn't want to deal with the issues dealing with me. And then I'm a Cancer sun. So, you know, I would help other people, or I would get tangled up in other people's issues just because I didn't want to deal with my own issues. And so I quickly had to learn from that, because eventually it became a thing like other people disregarded my needs because of that, you know, because I was disregarding my own needs. So I had to learn to stop putting other people's BS before my own, you know. The eighth house is the house of taboos, the house of mystery, the house of, I could say like murders would fall in. I would just say murders that that we don't really know the aspects to fall here. Astrology, you know, transformation, things of that nature is the eighth house. And so when you are a person who has heavy eighth house placements, heavy eighth house energy, you will notice that you're almost not allowed to stay the same. Like you're a person who has to go through transformations, because Pluto is your ruling planet. You have to go through those changes. And that's something that was very hard for me as a Cancer. Like coming up, I hated change. Like I did not like change. I went through huge changes. I felt like, you know, to other people, of course, it may not seem that big or that relevant, but like whole lifestyle changes just having to happen on a whim. And sometimes it's because you didn't take the initiative to make that change. And so Pluto had to step in and change it for you. And you do not want Pluto to come and change anything in your life. So you just have to follow your intuition a lot of times when dealing with water houses. So water houses are also linked to past lives, as I said. So a past life for a sun in the eighth house person, as I said, was someone who was very into their desires, somebody who was immersed into their desires, whether that be sex, you know, it could be overindulging into activities, you know, just kind of indulging, just overdoing things. And so this lifetime, I feel like that's what we're here to learn, is some sort of moderation, to dig deeper, to use all that heaviness and to bring it into reality, figure out what it is that we're passionate about, because the eighth house can be passions as well, not just, Aries energy. Pluto can deal with your passions as well, but that's more on the desire side. But if you turn it into if you take that desire and turn it into a passion, I feel like it gives you a little more meaning, it gives you a little more purpose, because it can feel too much, Another aspect that I have that I know a bunch of people deal with is moon square Pluto. And so when planets are aspecting Pluto, it's going to intensify whatever planet is aspecting Pluto. So with my moon aspecting Pluto, it adds that intensity to my feelings. So, and that's true. I'm a person who feels just deeply, very, very intensely. I hide it very well from people that I love and people around me. But that is an aspect of myself. I feel so deeply, and to the point where it can cripple you. Like you can feel so, like, say something bad happens, I get into it with a lover or a friend, or somebody passes away, something, like it touches me really deeply. So I have had to learn to tap into other parts of my chart in order to add some lightness there, because all intensity all the time, like, that'll make a person crazy. It'll drive you nuts. And lots of people with moon square Pluto aspects, when they don't have that help, like other places in their chart, they do have suicidal thoughts. They do deal with depression lots of times. Those are definitely things that they have to look out for, and it can tell you a lot. The eighth house can actually indicate a lot that is going on with a person. You can tap into that energy and use it to your advantage. And that is what I feel like people with heavy eighth house placements, who don't really know what to do, who are having all these feelings, who are feeling lonely, that's what you guys have to do. You have to tap into this darkness and bring it to the light. That's just my little spiel on the eighth house. We'll probably cover this topic again, because there's so much that I feel like I missed. Like, I want to talk about planets in there, and how it plays out into your life, all of that. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you later. Oh, and this is my new ficus I got, y'all. She cute, ain't she? She said bye.